This lesson is sponsored by Black Mountain Picks. What's up, pickers? It's John here with another Tuesday Blues lesson, and I'm excited to bring you a tutorial on Cannonball Rag as recorded on the Strictly Guitar album by the great fingerpicker Merle Travis. Big thanks to this video's sponsor, Black Mountain Picks. If you haven't checked these out yet, cruise on over to the link in the description. These picks are self-adjusting, they're super comfortable, and their familiar shape makes it a really good entry point for flat pickers into the world of thumb picking. Check them out in the link in the description. Now let's get on with the lesson. This tune is in the key of G major, and we've got 3 pickup notes that start off the very first measure. They really get us going as we head into a super cool E7 shape. By the way, it's the same chord shape that we use at the beginning of Doc Watson's Deep River Blues. I've got a tutorial on that if you want to check that out. And this tune is played at a breakneck pace, no doubt about it, but we're going to play it much slower in this tutorial, but adjust the speed to your taste and ability. I think it's really important to get to know the chords before we start tackling the picking. The first chord that we're going to need is this E7 shape here. And then, after a couple measures picking on that, we're going to move to an A add 9. So watch this. These 2 fingers just reverse themselves. Pretty cool. So we've got an A major triad there, but we've got this added 9th, which is 1 tone above the octave. And that's happening 7th fret on the 1st string. Pretty cool. So A add 9. This is different from an A9, which would have a 7th in there. All right. This is an A major with an added 9th. All right, so then what we're going to do is move into a D9. So there's a D with the flat 7 in it, but with the added 9th, in this case, E on top. All right, and then we're going to move to a big old G bar chord here at the 3rd fret, right? This E-shaped G chord. And that's all you need for the first 8 bars in terms of chords. There's some fancy movements for sure, but based around the E7, and then the A add 9, and then the D9. Keep in mind how those are different, right? This one has the flat 7, so we say D9, not D add 9, which would not have that flat 7 in there. And then finally wrapping up with a big old G major bar chord covering all 6 strings. By the way, if you need the tab to help you work your way through this, I'll link a decent tab for the arrangement that I'm working through in the description below. But beware, there's certainly a few notes here and there that are tabbed kind of oddly from a fingerpicker's perspective, and you'll want to make some small adjustments. I'll try to point those out as we continue through the tutorial. Now let's get to the picking. We're going to start this with a pickup measure. We'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, but we're going to come in on 2, and we're going to play the G note, 4th string, 5th fret, and then these are quarter notes, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. All I did there is 2, and then back down to the F sharp, and then back up to the G. And then this can be a little bit tricky, but it's super cool. Very subtle, I guess, but what we're going to do is hold that G and slide up as we get ready to get in position for our E7 chord. So notice that when we get to that 6th fret on the 4th string, we're going to pluck the bass. Then you'll want to make sure that your other fingers are in position for the E7, because then we're going to start using some of the tones from that. So let's start stepping through the bars over E7. All right, beat 2, there's a pinch. The bass is going to go between the 6th string and the 4th string. So our second beat is a pinch with the 4th string at the 6th fret here and the 1st string. Then back to the bass by itself for beat 3, and that's the 6th string. And then, and this is a little different from the tab that I'm working from, the tab would have you pluck the open first string. And maybe that happened, and maybe that's why it's notated that way in the tab that I'm working from. But instead of lifting that little finger up to get an E, why not use the finger that's already planted and in place to play an E on the second string, 5th fret. So that's what I'm going to do. And avoid, moving as much as possible here. There's quite a lot going on in this tune. I don't think I have to tell you that, especially when you play it at full Merle. So why not just hold things and make it a little bit easier on ourselves? This note and this note are the same. So that's what we're going to do. To recap, there's the E. And then back for beat 4 is the bass. And feel free anytime when you're doing the bass to push through the 2 strings, so 4th and the 3rd. If you catch it, sounds really cool, and I think it adds a lot of that boom chick sound that Merle Travis was obviously an expert at. I mean, they don't name a picking style after you for nothing, right? So that's the first measure, and really including that pickup measure too. And the second measure pairs nicely with that, and it kind of answers it. We're going to pinch with the bass in the first string, come through to the second string on the and of 1 and pluck that E, right? And then we've got bass, again, push through and catch strings 4 and 3, just holding down the chord here. And then on the and of 2, the 7th fret on the first string. All right. And then what we're going to do for the last 2 beats here is use a little walk up in the bass. And I'm going to pick up my index finger. You could do this with your thumb if that's comfortable for you. And even though I like to use my thumb a lot in finger picking, I for some reason go to this for this particular note. It's best though to leave this stuff ringing. And that's probably a good reason to bring the thumb on instead of the index finger. But a couple of options there is to use the index finger to go 3, 4, on our way to A, by the way, or the thumb. And if you can't do it, because I realize that's a lot of stretching going on, then you may just have to leave that note a little bit sooner than planned and walk up. Nothing wrong with that either. But that rounds up the E picking, and then we're going to move into our A, add 9. So it's kind of cool how we step into that A. Open 5th string there. And this is the chord shape that we're dealing with. So let's have a look at the picking. And by the way, before we get too much further in A, I'm going to use the A bass here. So A and then the octave here on the 4th string. So that's the 5th string, 4th string, 5th string, 4th string. And you'll see that we're going to incorporate the open 6th string. A popular Travis picking pattern would be, but it's not exactly that. At least I don't think so. And it's not written that way in the tab that I'm working from either, which, by the way, there's a link in the description to the tab that I'm working from. So what we're going to do for the bass as we start out on our A9 chord is play the bass by itself, open 5th string. And this is a departure. The bass in the tab would have you play the 5th fret, 6th string. But again, let's make it easy on ourselves. Fret this chord, leave everything else alone, right? And use this note, which is the same. All right, so we're going bass, and then we're going to play the 7th fret on the 4th string and push through, catch the 3rd. As long as at the same time, we're going to pinch that 7th fret on the 1st string. Then we go back. That same pattern before, and I hit the open 6th string there. Didn't mean to. Force of habit. I think what's happening here is another A. So we just go for this measure on the bass. And notice that I came back and plucked that E on the 2nd string in there. All right, and then we're going to do a very similar move to the 2nd measure over E7. But here, this is beat 3. I want to go back to the 6th string now. So this is where we kind of assume a regular Travis picking 5-4-6-4 for this measure. Whereas in the last measure, it was 5-4-5-4. All right. And then, lucky for us, we get to pick our hand up off of the fretboard here for the last half of this measure. Because what we're going to do is play that 6th string bass, open 2nd string, open 4th string. This is pretty handy because we're changing chords here. So it gives us just a little fraction of a second to move into our D9 chord shape. All right, and for D9, what we're going to do is go bass on the 5th string, 4th string, 5th string, 4th string. Okay, actually, sorry about that. We're going to go 5th string, 4th string, 6th string, 4th string. All right, so 5-4-6-4, 5-4-6-4. We're going to open up for that one as well because we got another chord change coming. But let's talk about the melody that's happening over this D9 chord. This is really cool, and some bits are, tricky. So let's dig in. We're going to start with a very similar pattern. So we're pinching on beat 2 with the chord with this bar happening across the top 3 strings. So that gives us the 5th fret on the 1st string, an A note there. Back. All right, so what hopefully seems familiar to you now with this picking pattern. All right, and then guess what? We're going to answer that with another measure over this D9. All right, but here's where things start to get pretty tricky, yet very cool, in my opinion. All right, they were cool a lot sooner than this in the progression, but this note, this sort of chromatic walk-up, it certainly takes some finesse to get this done, and I absolutely love it. We're going to do this move on D9. So bass, and then we go in between the bass notes. We're going to reach up with the little finger to the 6th fret on the 1st string. Let's play that again. Then bass, notice that's moved to the 6th string, and then what we're going to do is you can pick up here and move to that 7th fret, and then we wrap up with these 2 strings, that's 4 and 3, for the final bass beat. So we kind of do that nice little walk up on the 1st string. Let's listen to these couple of bars. All right, on our way to a big G chord. So play that bar chord, and the picking is as follows. All right, notice that last little move really kind of ties us back to where we started this whole thing with that pickup measure. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's look at these 2 measures on G. The bass, you'll see this in the notation if you're following along with that. You push through the 6th string and the 5th string here, right, to get that, sort of super bassy, kind of power chord thing happening in the bass, which is a really cool thing to do if you can push through and catch that fretted note on the D here. So the G and the D. All right, so we're adding some power chords in this country picking thing. Okay, so what we're going to do for beat 1 is that push through and pluck the G on the 1st string. Then bass, this bass is, right, so our bass is on the 4th string, 5th fret. On the and of 2, come through and hit that B on the 3rd string, 4th fret. Back to the bass, the D on the 2nd string, bass. So here's that first measure over G. A little cleaner. All right, and then we're going to do that pinch with the power chord again, and then bass for beat 2, and of 2, pluck the D on the second string, and then this is where we're going to play our little pickup. But we're putting the open second string in between. And that wraps up the first 8 measures. Now what we've got to do is listen to these measures played slowly so that we have some context and so that you have something to practice toward at a fairly slow, although this whole thing is fast, even slow is fast for this tune, but at a slower tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. All right, there's a few months worth of work for most pickers. This is not easy, especially when played at full Merle. That's something that we're not going to do here. We're definitely keeping this at a more, attainable tempo. Now, as we move through the arrangement, we're going to repeat the first 8 bars with only some very slight modifications. This is a little different. The timing of this chromatic walk-up, as well as the articulation as we get to the 7th fret there, the B note on the first string, it's a little bit different, slightly different, but it to me adds something pretty cool to this measure. So far the same. Bass, finish the slide. With that note ringing, finish the slide after you hit that bass, and then we're going to hit the open 4th and 3rd strings for the last beat, that sort of down thumb stroke for beat 4 there. All right, and then back to the big G major bar chord here. The picking is a little bit different because we're not going to end with this to get us back around to this E7 part. We're actually going to change into a different section of the song after this, so the G chord picking is a little bit different. But the very cool thing, or helpful thing for us mortal pickers here, is that at the end we get another one of those open string picking at the end of the second measure to give us some time to get in position for the next section. All right, here's what I mean. I'm going to take it from the G chord picking, the last couple bars of this 8-bar section. All right, once more slowly. The picking here is pinch, bass, B on the 3rd string, and then bass, D on the 2nd string, bass. All right. All right, so pretty much what we did last time, if not exactly what we did last time. And then here, our bass for the last one is actually going to start on the 5th string instead of the 6th. So we're still in G, but we're going to do 5, 4, 6, 4. All right, so we're going to kind of turn this pattern around from what you would normally do with a 6-string rooted chord here. And the picking is, so we're pinching, bass, pluck the 1st string, bass, open, bass, which is these 2 open. You won't separate them like that. You come down solidly on them together. And again, big tip for you, when you hit this moment, hit that bass, open 2nd string, and then these open, pick your hand up off of the fretboard and get ready for the next section. Here's the 8-bar repeat played slowly, and watch out for those subtle variations as they come up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Clearly, there's a lot going on just in what we've covered so far, and this is really just the first bit of the tune. Now, I worked on these 8 bars slowly but deliberately over a period of several weeks, and my biggest tip for you is to slow this sucker down and gradually work up to tempo. I say that so much in these lessons that you might actually be tuning me out by now, but listen, it helps. It's what I did to put this thing in my songbook and what I did to get ready for this video. Highly recommended. Let's hear this thing up to speed once more. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. It certainly is a bear to get this tune down, but keep at it. That's what I did. Over time, the bits and pieces of it become a bit more manageable. So take it bar by bar if you have to, and try to have some fun with it, because this tune is 100% worth all the effort you're gonna put into it. And if you enjoyed this lesson and wanna learn more, just click or tap right over here, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, practice smart and play on.